Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're doing something a little different, really fascinating. We're journeying through just one single day, June 22, 2025.
Right.
We're using a collection of sources called Nigerian News and Global Events. Our mission, for you listening, is to pull out the key insights, the important bits, and maybe some surprising facts from all this material.
Yeah, it's like getting a snapshot.
Exactly, like hitting fast forward to being really informed about this specific moment. Okay, let's unpack this.
Indeed. And it's a unique way to see the world, isn't it? Through this very focused lens of just one day.
Yeah.
These sources, they give us a mix of, breaking news from Nigeria, some big global things happening, and even some interesting historical scientific stuff, too. What's really interesting, I think, is how quickly you can start to see the main themes, get the context, connect the dots, without feeling totally swamped by all the info we usually get hit with.
Absolutely. So where should we start? Maybe with the really urgent issues in the Nigerian headlines for that day?
Sounds like a good plan.
Okay, so we see some deeply troubling reports of violence right away. A female suicide bomber killed 12, injured 18 in Borno,
Tragic.
and then a separate bomb in Kano killed 5. These are just, stark reminders of the security challenges, aren't they?
They really are.
So beyond the immediate tragedy, what do these tell us about the bigger picture in Nigeria on June 22nd?
Well, if you connect these, like you said, to the bigger picture, they unfortunately seem to fit into this persistent pattern of insecurity. It's not just these two incidents.
Right.
The sources also mention police catching 22 suspects for killing 12 wedding guests in Plateau, and reports of bandits killing 30 people in Zuru, Kebbi State.
30 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
So these aren't, isolated things. It's a really complex, sort of multi-layered challenge, and you see different levels of government trying to respond.
How so?
Well, Vice President Shedema condemned the Borno attack, promised an immediate response. The Plateau governor condemned the killing of 8 travelers there, but also urged calm. Then you've got Governor Sule in Nasarawa telling traditional rulers in Benue, okay, protect your border areas. And Senator Sani calling for justice for killings in Kaduna and Plateau.
So lots of reactions.
Lots of reactions, exactly.
Yeah.
Which kind of raises the question, doesn't it? With all these different actors, different incidents, how do you coordinate an effective national response? That seems to be a major challenge.
Yeah, it does seem fragmented. And on the legal side, you mentioned responses. Ondo State is taking a very strong line, declaring death by hanging for kidnappers.
That's a drastic measure.
Extremely. But even with that kind of deterrent, we still see, a judge abducted in Bayelsa, a hunter commander killed in Benue.
Right.
What does that sort of disconnect tell us about how effective these legal threats are versus what's actually happening on the ground?
That's the key question, isn't it? The gap between policy and reality.
And it's not just violence either. There's this report about alleged sextortion and cyberbullying, leading to the EFCC arresting an aide to the Benue governor.
Yes, which points to another dimension of insecurity, really. Online threats, abuse of power. And what's also quite revealing, I think, is how the sources show these deeper societal issues bubbling up alongside the violence.
Like what?
Well, there's a horrible story about a battered 13-year-old girl rescued in Imo after her guardian attacked her brutally.
Oh, that's awful.
It is. And then this almost unbelievable case in Anambra where vigilantes detained a pregnant woman and 2 kids for 20 days.
20 days? Just detained them.
Apparently so. And in Benue, the state government caught 50 people pretending to be displaced persons in IDP camps, likely trying to access resources fraudulently.
Wow.
So, yeah, these details, they really highlight the complex humanitarian stuff, the social challenges. And it's not just about bombs and bandits. It's about vulnerability, social breakdown sometimes.
It paints a much broader and, frankly, quite concerning picture. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the economy. One headline really jumps out because it hits people's pockets directly.
Real price.
Exactly. MR is hiking petrol prices, and $9.25 in Lagos and $9.55 in the southeast. That's a big jump.
It really is. And that's a very tangible sign of the economic pressures people are feeling,
Definitely.
But it fits into this larger economic story. On the international side, Nigeria is negotiating a $65 million extra loan with the World Bank for procurement, it says.
Okay. More borrowing.
Yes, but it suggests they're trying to, bolster supply chains, public services. And there's also some positive news. A West African Economic Summit apparently unlocked $400 million in investment deals.
$400 million. That sounds promising.
It does. So you see this mix, right? People feeling the pinch at the pump,
Yeah.
but these bigger moves happening, trying to aim for growth, stability,
Mm-hmm.
even if it involves more international finance.
Right. And what about infrastructure, transport? I saw some good news there. Air Peace getting UK approval to fly direct to Heathrow.
Yeah, that's potentially huge, isn't it? For connectivity, business, travel.
Absolutely. And the NDDC inaugurated 4 projects in River State, so some signs of regional development work continuing.
True. But it's not all smooth sailing, is it? The sources also mentioned the Ports Authority having to avert a fire disaster at Lagos port vessels actually caught fire.
Good grief. That could have been catastrophic.
Exactly. And another Air Peace flight had a bird strike, had to turn back for safety checks.
Right.
It just underlines the constant, operational challenges.
Yeah.
Keeping things running safely.
Yeah, the day-to-day reality of managing big infrastructure.
But then on the revenue side, there's this interesting bit about the government targeting $12 million from selling electronic navigational charts globally.
Oh, interesting. Leveraging digital assets.
Precisely. Finding new income streams.
And we also see some very local economic concerns mentioned. Hoteliers appealing to the Ondo governor about unpaid debts.
Mm-hmm.
And the Owerri Chamber of Commerce, Osisema, asking the federal government to oversee the N75 billion intervention loan disbursement directly.
Right, which suggests maybe some worries about transparency or how that money is being handled locally. A call for accountability.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's get into the politics swirling around on June 22nd. President Tinubu, he's urging economic unity among West African countries.
Yeah, a clear regional focus there in his foreign policy approach.
And then domestically, in party politics, Tinubu apparently told the Akwa Ibom governor, Ino, that he won't regret joining the ruling party, the APC.
Ah, yes.
Yes.
That speaks volumes about the ongoing shifts and realignments within Nigerian politics, doesn't it? The push and pull between parties.
It really does.
And this leads us right into those intricate dynamics. You've got former VP Atiku denying he's adopted some unregistered party, basically trying to keep his options open, maintain his position.
Mm-hmm. Standard political maneuvering, maybe.
Could be. And then looking ahead to 2027, there's already chatter within the main opposition, the PDP. NEC members disagreeing on presidential zoning.
Always a contentious issue.
Hugely important. Which region gets to field the presidential candidate? It signals potential fights brewing internally. And much more seriously, tragically, an ex-PDP chairman in Benue was assassinated.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Apparently a year after his wife was also murdered. That casts a really dark shadow over the political scene there.
God, that's grim. So beyond the party stuff, what about accountability, legal reform?
Well, there's this convict passport scandal.
Mm-hmm.
A government panel suspended 2 officers. They're investigating an inmate for allegedly helping convicts get passports.
Passports for convicts, that's a major security breach.
A huge one. And then the Nigerian Bar Association, the NBA, they've rejected a plan to increase the number of Supreme Court justices to 30.
Why?
The sources don't detail why, but often those debates are around concerns about judicial independence or maybe just the efficiency of having such a large bench. It signals a pushback from the legal profession itself.
Interesting.
And what's also fascinating, I think, is how these sources give us glimpses into the inner workings of governance, even social structures.
How so?
Like the Arts and Culture Minister, Musawa, directing Nyaho Tour, that's the Tourism Training Institute, to suspend enforcement actions nationwide, suggests maybe a policy review or rethink on regulations. And in religious governance, the African Church suspended its primate, Abe, for constitutional infractions, shows internal checks and balances even within religious bodies.
Right.
And then you get these really personal legal fights that kind of reflect wider societal things, like Chief Iwanyanwu's will reportedly banning his young widow from remarrying.
Really? Not even legal?
Well, it raises questions, certainly. And then this other case, Alosawa's daughter wanting her father's body exhumed for a DNA test because of a property dispute.
Wow. These personal stories really highlight how complex family law and property can get.
Exactly. They show how these big legal and social issues play out in individual lives.
And just quickly, some other localized things. Peter Obi speaking out against attacks and killings, urging action on insecurity.
Adding his voice to the calls for security.
Minister Wyke making a stand about not letting individuals hijack the IBB Golf Club in Abuja.
Right, asserting control over public assets, perhaps.
And Enugu traders asking Governor Mba to intervene about a relocation order. So lots of local pressures and political responses happening, too.
Yeah, the news cycle captures everything from the presidential level right down to community disputes.
Okay, let's broaden our view now. Beyond Nigeria, the global stage on June 22nd. Some pretty high-stakes headlines here.
Definitely.
Former U.S. President Trump claiming the U.S. launched a, quote, very successful attack on Iranian nuclear sites.
Wow, that's a huge claim, especially coming from a former president.
And then Iran's Ayatollah reportedly naming 3 potential successors, just as Israel is said to be renewing assassination threats against Iranian figures.
Right, so you've got these intense geopolitical tensions flaring up, or at least being talked about very openly. It paints a picture of real volatility, particularly in the Middle East.
What are the sort of immediate ripples from claims and threats like that?
Well, uncertainty, for one. Increased tension. It keeps everyone on edge, regionally and globally. Markets might react. Other countries have to decide how to respond or whether to believe the claims. It's a delicate balance.
Definitely. And elsewhere in the world.
Sadly, a tragic hot air balloon crash in Brazil. 8 people killed, 13 injured. A real reminder of unexpected dangers.
Awful.
But then, on a much more positive note, a story of cultural restitution. The Netherlands returning 119 Benin bronzes to Nigeria.
Oh, that's fantastic news.
It really is a significant step in addressing historical wrongs and directly relevant to Nigeria's heritage.
Yeah.
And looking forward, something inspiring. Celis is apparently said to be the first Nigerian in space. Astronauts are gathering for camp training.
First Nigerian in space. That's amazing. A real milestone.
Absolutely. A forward-looking, hopeful item amidst all the difficult news.
And you know, amongst all this big news, sometimes it's the little did you know facts that stick with you. Our sources had a couple.
Ah, yes, the fun fact.
Like saponification, the chemical reaction that turns fats or oils into soap. Apparently, humans figured this out around 2800 BC, just using animal fat, wood ash, and water.
Incredible, isn't it? Ancient chemistry, basically, still fundamental today.
Right. Simple ingredients, profound discovery.
And here's another one, the hummingbird. It's the only bird that can fly backward.
Is that right? Backward.
Yep. Tiny little things, but quite extraordinary flyers. These little nuggets, they just remind you, don't they? Knowledge comes in all shapes and sizes.
It does. And speaking of history, today in history for June 22nd, this one's a biggie.
Go on.
1633. The Catholic Church forced Galileo Galilei to renounce his view that the Earth revolves around the sun.
Ah, Galileo, the heliocentric view.
Yeah. The Holy Office decided that saying the sun was the center of the universe made him, quote, suspect of heresy. He spent the rest of his life under house arrest.
It's such a powerful reminder, isn't it? That clash between established beliefs, established power, and, well, scientific discovery. The cost of challenging the way things are seen.
A huge personal cost for him.
Huge. And it makes you think about courage. The courage needed to push for truth. And fittingly, there's a quote included from Martin Luther. God does not need your good works, but your neighbor does.
How do you interpret that, especially after everything we've discussed?
Well, it brings it back down to earth, doesn't it? It raises that question about, how do we actually apply our beliefs, our knowledge in the real world? Especially thinking about all those societal challenges we saw in Nigeria. It's about practical help, practical action for others.
That's a really thoughtful connection. Wow, what an incredible amount we've covered just from one day's news.
It's quite something when you focus in like this.
Yeah. From those critical security issues and the political shifts in Nigeria to the big international events, global tensions, and even, soap making in Galileo.
Yeah, quite the range.
We've managed to distill so much diverse information into hopefully a clear overview for you.
And I think the real power of doing a deep dive like this is seeing the connections, isn't it? How things that seem separate might actually link up. It gives you, hopefully, a more joined-up view of the world on that particular day, moving beyond just the headlines to see the underlying currents. And it really makes you think, how do all these bits and pieces, petrol prices, political maneuvering, scientific history, that quote about neighbors, how do they all fit into this bigger ongoing story of, well, human progress and human challenges?
That's a great question to leave people with. And maybe one more thought. As you reflect on everything we've unpacked today, maybe consider this. How much of what we call news is genuinely new versus how much of it just echoes these long, complex human stories, struggles for security, debates about power, the tension between belief and discovery, like Galileo's story still resonating centuries later.
And that's a profound point. History doesn't repeat, perhaps, but it certainly rhymes.
Exactly. The more we understand that context, maybe the clearer we can see today, and maybe even get a glimpse of what's coming. We hope you continue exploring those connections for yourself.